Guten Yardening. Sweet potatoes are a nutrition-filled staple in our family's diet, so we try to plant as many and as creatively as we can. This year, we've planted these sweet potatoes in 3 different ways, which we're going to show you in this video. We also have some open space in one of our raised beds where we harvested our carrots earlier, and so we're going to plant a few more slips even though it is late in the season. Regardless of how large the sweet potatoes develop, we're going to have a second crop to enjoy. Unlike most fruits and vegetables, we don't grow sweet potatoes from seeds. We grow them from sweet potato slips, which you can buy online or you can propagate yourself. At the end of this video, we'll show you how we propagated our sweet potatoes this year. Last year, we grew most of our sweet potatoes in our raised beds. And square footage-wide, this is still our largest style of growing sweet potatoes. This year we purchased 5 different varieties of sweet potato slips online. 3 of them are vine variety and 2 of them are bush variety, as you can see on the screen. About 3/4 of what you're seeing in these 2 beds are from the potato slips we purchased online. We're here at our second growing setup, which is a hay bale. In previous years we planted sweet potatoes directly in this blue plastic container, but what we found was that it wasn't nearly deep enough for the roots to develop and the tubers to develop fully. So this year we added a hay bale that we preconditioned and planted. And you can see, even though it actually took, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks before these really started to settle in and grow and develop, now we're seeing a really full foliage and the plant seems to be thriving. To plant these, we dug a hole in the soil and added some of our soil mix to give them a place to start. One of the garden pests that we've had to deal with this year is the Japanese beetle, and you can see it got to this leaf really badly. But the damage, and you can see, the damage has been pretty limited overall. And I think maybe part of that is because we have a lot more birds that we've attracted this year than in years past. And I think they've been helping eat some of those beetles, and we've worked hard to manage the beetles, which we'll show you in a different video. Another one of our planting setups is in food grade containers. These plastic containers come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and we'll show you a bucket type right after this. But what's most important about growing in these is that you have enough depth for the roots and the tubers to develop. And you'll see after we planted only 5 plants in here, they really spread out. We started these sweet potatoes very early in the season, and here's the plastic bucket I was talking about. And so we're now able, because they've developed enough, to collect cuttings from these, which we can then put in water to have them grow into slips. When we're selecting cuttings, we want to choose one that is sturdy and has plenty of nodes from which the roots will develop. So I'm going to cut this right above a node. And when I put this in water, we'll see roots develop right out of each of these nodes. Once we've taken the cutting, we're going to remove the lower leaves. And we're going to place this right into some water, and that's going to leave plenty of room for root development. And there you go. Once we've got it trimmed up, we're going to put it in some water, and you'll see root development within just a few days. We're going to take a few more from our already growing vines, and you can take as many as you want, as long as they're long enough and, again, sturdy enough. This is an example of a mature sweet potato that's been producing slips for us for quite some time. And actually we've moved on from the slip production and we've turned this into a decorative plant. We actually have this on our front porch in a planter because the foliage is absolutely beautiful. But you can see where the slips are coming out, and if you look closely you can also see the scars from where we removed some of the slips, and some of them were quite long with multiple nodes, so we could get more than one slip from a single cutting. For our second crop, because we have this raised bed space, we're taking cuttings from some of the sweet potato vines that have already developed, and we're creating additional slips. Now you can see the difference between a slip that's been in the water only for about a week and a slip that's been in the water for several weeks. The root growth is really fast, and I'll show you this, very gentle, and you can see where there's an additional node. Here's the nodes. This plant has multiple nodes, and we're going to plant this all the way up to this third node. And we want as many nodes in the ground as we can, depending on the depth of our raised bed, just to give the roots a greater chance of taking off and more room to grow. The more roots, the better the plant's going to perform. And again, we know it's late in the season, and so our expectation of a crop may not be what it would have been if we had planted much earlier, but we have the room and we want that additional harvest. Planting these is fairly straightforward, and you know, when you decide on the density of your planting, it's not an exact science. A lot of it depends on the fertility of your bed and as to what it can hold. So we're going to take time and plant these a little bit more densely, but maybe yours won't allow for that. That's part of the experiment of growing new things. I think we're going to be able to get something along these lines, maybe four across here, and then we'll do a stagger, so 4, 3, 4, 3, and so on. All right, we've laid these out, and we have so many of these slips that we've created from the vines. So we've been a little bit selective and tried to pick slips that have multiple nodes for us to put into the soil. So again, we're going to put not just the first and the second one, but since we have a third node up here that's going to produce roots, we're going to plant until all of this is covered. And we're going to do that for all of these. You can see just how easy it is to work with our raised bed soil mix. I'm using my hand and I'm having absolutely no trouble at all getting a good foot of depth digging down. Much different than if I was trying to work to our regular garden soil. It's an overcast day out, and that works out perfectly to our benefit because it's much better to plant these when the sun isn't beating down than when it is. And that's it. Really fast, we're going to give these a good watering, and our second crop is in the ground with still over 80 days till our first frost. Our expectation is that we will get some sweet potatoes, and this bed will soon look like our other raised beds of sweet potatoes. Well, that was some hard work, so I had to stop and have a little berry break. If you haven't seen one of our previous videos on the types of berries we're growing, you should check it out. All right, just a nice watering. And you probably saw me take off some of these leaves. Those leaves are going right into our compost. If you have some extra space like we did and you want to give this a try, you already have sweet potatoes growing, we encourage you to do just that and let us know how your crop turns out. After about 25 minutes of planting and watering, our second sweet potato crop is in the ground. Our succession planting has taken us from carrots, which were delicious, into these sweet potatoes. With just over 80 days, we expect to get something from this crop that's going to be much better than if we hadn't planted at all. Our first crop is well on its way, and so we're going to see a harvest that exceeds anything we've planted in the past. We hope you enjoyed this video. You never know what's going to work until you try it out. If you've been inspired today to try something new, give us a like and leave us a comment. If you have experience growing your own sweet potatoes and have different methods that you use, let us know. We'd love to hear about it and try our own experiments. Remember to subscribe and share with your friends. And above all, remember, when you're with us, you're good to grow. Toward the beginning of February, we purchased 4 organic sweet potatoes and placed them in jars filled with enough water to cover the bottoms of the sweet potato. They were held in place by toothpicks. Within 4 weeks, shoots were sprouting out of the top of the sweet potato and a dense root system was developing on the part of the sweet potatoes submerged in the water. A month and a half after initially placing them in the jar, and shoots were growing so quickly. We also purchased a few extra sweet potatoes as we weren't sure how many slips we could harvest from our initial tubers. Each of the sweet potato varieties we bought grew at its own rate, and the thickness of the shoots varied as well. 2 months after initially placing the sweet potatoes in the water, we had shoots that were ready to be cut off to be used as potato slips. After cutting off the shoots, we placed them in water, and the roots of these developed quickly. It also soon became evident just how many shoots would come out of these sweet potatoes, and after harvesting the slips, more would continue to grow. By May, the slips we had clipped off and placed in water had grown lots of roots, and we were ready to harden them off outside before placing them in the ground. We hardened them off on the porch, and as you can see, we had way more than we expected when we started with our sweet potatoes. But that isn't a bad thing.